Okay, so today Lumix has just released new firmware for the S5 Mark II, the S5 Mark IIX, the GH7 and the G9 Mark II. And there's either some minor updates for the S1, the S1R, as well as some of the full frame S lenses. So that's good news for Lumix users, unless you're a GH6 user, which at this point there's sort of nothing there for you, but we'll kind of get into that later in the video. And I'll put a link in the description for the firmware updates, and I'll link on how you can do the updates for, the bodies and the lenses, and that should be up in the corner now. So this is kind of split up into two bits. We've got the full frame and the micro four thirds update. So essentially for micro four thirds, we've got the GH7 and we've got the G9 Mark II with no lens updates there. So just those two camera bodies. And then within here, we've got the S1R, the S1, the S5 Mark II, the S5 Mark IIX, and we've got a few S-series lens updates. So what I'll do is I'll start just with these couple of minor ones, and then we'll go through the S5 Mark II update. And that really, in a way, almost covers all the updates. And then we'll just sort of jump into the other cameras and just look at some of the differences between them. So just to begin with, the S1R, we've just got some additional bits here. So we had this across some of the other cameras before. We've just got the pop-up message when using the collapsible Panasonic lens and a couple of operational stability updates, which is quite nice. They've released another update for this. The last one was actually just January last year, but there's been firmware updates going for this for over 6 years now. So that's pretty good that they're still just sort of ticking along. And then we've got the ones for the original S1. So we've got the same update, essentially, this pop-up message, and the operational stability has been improved. So both worth downloading at some point if you've got either of those cameras, because it's there to download. And then, like I say, we'll look at the S5 Mark II, because this has got basically the chunk of most of the updates coming to the majority of cameras, and we'll go through some of the differences and bits as well. So we've got the enhanced subject detection. So this was carried over from other cameras. We kind of, each time a camera's released, they sort of come out with extra bits. We've had the G9 Mark II, we've had the S9, and with them they've sort of brought little additional bits every time, and these have all been rolled back into the other cameras, so that's great. So you've got the airplane and train subject detection modes, and then you've got the target parts which have been added for car and motorcycle. So you've got bits in there like you can select like the helmet for motorcycle riders and things like that. And then you've got multi-frame markers where you can have up to 3 selected frame markers. And this, if you don't know what this is, it's a really nice feature, because it's essentially, if you're shooting open gate, if you don't know what I'm talking about there, I'll link up in a corner with a bit more kind of explanation. But essentially, if you're shooting the whole sensor, you'll be able to use frame markers to give you a guide as to like your standard output sizes. So, your 16 by 9, your 9 by 16, and even like a 1:1. And then you can, at a glance, you can see your framing for all of those sizes. And then obviously that's really useful, because you'll be able to kind of use that across everything, YouTube, Instagram, like stories. You'll be able to use it 1:1 in things like ads and stuff. So it's really nice. It's like, it's got a good kind of, that's a good workflow for anybody that uses OpenGate and then redistributes it across lots of platforms. And, I would have loved to see this come to the GH6, because I've been banging on about that for years since the GH6 came out. So it's a shame that it's not come to that, because, it would have made sense to bring it to a video camera like the GH6, but, it's not there. And like I say, we'll come to that a bit later on. But we've got crop zoom. So crop zoom has been available in I believe it's on the S9. It's also on the GH7. And now it's been brought back to this. So you've got it's essentially being able to crop into the image without degrading the kind of image quality. And then you've got the hybrid zoom feature as well. But it's worth noting that the hybrid zoom has not been brought over to the MFT lineup. So we don't see it there in the G9 Mark II. We don't see it there in the GH7. And you can kind of see that as we move on. I don't know if that's to do with the different kind of sensor shapes. So, you know, that might be something that's coming down the line. I'm not sure. But for right now, it seems it's just a full frame thing. So, yeah, we've got that here. And you can see we've got compatible to the recording format for MP4 Lite. And if you kind of don't know what that is, it's kind of like a low bitrate version in comparison to the MP4 versions that are on the camera. So the MP4 versions are the smallest on the cameras usually, are the most compressed, and then they're giving you an option for an even smaller one. You've got that, you've got your frame markers, and then obviously with the new support down here, which we'll get to in a minute, sorry, here, it will let you send it straight off to your camera, so you're not sending huge files to the camera. And the same again here, you've got this new XS option, so extra small for the photos, and it all rolls into this. So if we just come down to this one, you've got transferring images selected on the camera is now available, so you can send small video files and small photo files to cameras and tablets without having to block them up with huge files. So that's quite nice, really. They've sort of like rolled those two features in together. And also now in Lumix Lab, you've got the remote shooting and remote shutter. So it's getting a little bit more kind of feature rich now, this app, which is good. And it's starting to it works with really all the kind of the flagship cameras at the moment. So it's, it's starting to take shape a little bit. And this will eventually take over the old image app and Lumix Sync. But it's the other apps are still sort of in use at the moment, but this is looking to sort of take over from that. And then you've got these feature changes due to security enhancements. I'm not going to go into this really because it's just, you know, it kind of is what it is. It's just a few, you know, small updates around kind of security around Wi-Fi and things like that. So there's nothing too exciting in that. And then you've got improved operational stability. So there should be, you know, there'll be a few little bits and pieces in there. So overall, that's a pretty huge update. It's quite chunky. And then if we come into the S5 Mark IIX, it's more of the same, but there are a couple of changes in here. So if we come in, you'll be able to see, sorry, let me just resize that a bit. So all the same AF stuff, multiple frame markers, same, crop zoom, hybrid zoom. You've got your MP4 Lite, which is good, your new smaller mode for that, for the video. And then you can see we've got on here a wireless IP streaming feature is now available, which we didn't have on the S5 Mark II. So that's just a 5.2x feature. So that's you know, one difference to kind of take note of there. And we'll jump into the MFT cameras, and then we'll come back to the lenses at the end, because they're really only quite small updates, and we'll just pick that up at the end. So Micro Four Thirds, we've got GH7, G9m2. We'll start on the GH7. And you can see here we've got some of the same stuff from you know, the S5, which I was saying is really, most of it is kind of copied over. We've got those multiple frame markers. We've got the MP4 Lite option, which I was a little bit surprised about, actually. I didn't think that would come into the GH cameras. It's like, that's quite nice to have that. It's like a kind of social option, just to kind of share these out to a phone or tablet. It's quite a nice little additional feature. And then you've got all of these Lumix Lab features, same again. And you'll notice the wireless IP streaming is available for the GH7 as well as the S5, the S5iiX. So these two have it. And then you can see we've got the same security changes and the stability improvements there. So again, that's a pretty decent update for the GH7. There's quite a lot in that. And then the G9m2, we've got similar again. We've got the enhanced AF mode, we've got the multiple frame marker, crop zoom's been added. You'll notice actually across these two, it's probably worth mentioning, crop zoom's already a feature on the GH7, so it's not been added, but it's already there. And like I say, hybrid zoom, not there, well, at least at the moment, it's not there. So crop zoom has been added to the G9 Mark II. That was with the GH7 before. You get your MP4 Lite on there as well, your XS picture option. Again, it's all for this kind of stuff. And you'll notice you don't have the wireless IP option in there that you've got on the S5iiX and the GH7 as well. So that's like a little bit of an omission from the G9m2. I don't know if that will kind of come into it or what's kind of happening with that, but whatever, for now it's kind of not there. You've got your security updates around all your Wi-Fi stuff, and then again improved operational stability. So it is much of the same, but there's a lot of little little bits between the cameras that are slightly different. So there are bits just to kind of be aware of in there. And then we'll come into the lens updates. Like I say, no MFT lens updates. These are all S series lenses. So you can see here we've got the 16 to 35. And then we've got improved AF performance while zooming. And you can see that the product compatibility has changed. We've got the S5iii, S5iiX, and the S9. And then on the 21 to 105, we've got just improved operational stability. So just a small one there. And then we've got a couple of accessory updates for the 70 to 200 variants. So if we come into this, you can see here we've got compatibility with the Leica L-mount teleconverter, and it's got on there as well that the 2x extender can be used, and that is the same for this one as well. So if we jump into that, you can see actually this has also got the additional AF performance while zoom in, and the compatibility with those cameras as well. So the lens updates obviously are well worth doing. Get those updated, certainly if you've got any of those cameras. And I would update both of them, get the body updates done, get the lens updates done. Like I say, there's a link in the description. There'll be a pinned comment on kind of how to do that. And then we kind of come to the elephant in the room, which is the GH6 and why that's not received any updates. And you can kind of see on the versions for this. We had in June we had the last update, and there were a couple of good updates in there. Like we had the Arilog option for it. It was a paid key, but it's a okay option there. And then we've got the XLR2 compatibility, but it wasn't for 32-bit flow. And this was back in June, so we've had a release like 7 months ago now, and it would be nice if we could get some of these features in there. Like, I mean, to be honest, like some of the ones from the GH7, I mean, some of these, they're all bundled in together, so they probably won't come. But things like the multi-frame markers, that just seems like something they could just bring into the camera. I mean, I'd find it really hard to believe that the processor on the GH6 can't handle putting 3 different boxes on a screen. So it'd be nice if they did roll that into the GH6, because I think for me it makes sense. If you've got that for cameras that support open gate like the GH6 does, and it's a 4x3 sensor, so it's a little bit harder to judge some of the frame sizes while it's going. So if they brought that in, I think that would be a nice kind of consolation for GH6 users. I mean, but I suppose by this point you have to understand that the GH6 is nearly 3 years old. It's not considered a flagship camera when you've got the GH7 there. So it's one of those things where the firmware updates are going to start to dry out. It's the same for all cameras. After a few years, they're not going to start receiving a lot of this stuff. So you've got the MP4 Lite. Can't see that happening because you don't have Lumix Lab support. Like there's no point kind of sending stuff over to or having a Lite option when there's no option really to send it through the Lumix Lab app. I mean, you could add it, but there's sort of no point. Lumix Lab's not going to get added because there's no real-time LUT. Real-time LUT very unlikely to get added. So you're kind of like in this, I don't know. It seems like a little bit of a rock and a hard place type thing, because I think there's so many features that are missing that it's probably unlikely anything's going to get added. I mean, if these were really that important and they were connected to anything the GH6 did, I don't know if this is the way it communicates with Lumix Lab, or, you know, if it's the way it communicates with Lumix Sync, you'd think this would be coming to the GH6 as well, but it's not. So, you know, there's kind of quite big differences now between the two. So it would be nice if some of these things came, but at the same time, I feel like it's a bit of like a far cry for a lot of this stuff, because one feature kind of has a knock on to another. Like I say, the frame markers are a separate thing, so it'd be really nice if they brought that in. I'd like to see that as a feature. You know, things like the crop zoom as well. It'd be nice to see that as a feature. Will it come? I don't really know. It's yeah, it's one to be seen, really. And obviously there's news of new S series cameras coming like in a few weeks, so it'd be interesting to see what kind of happens with that. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and if you found this video helpful, obviously give it a like, and if you want to see more Lumix content, check out the playlist on this channel, and please subscribe.